Ladies and gentlemen, if we can begin to find seats, we're going to begin services. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Welcome. A poem by David Harkin. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and hope that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back. Or you can do what he would want, smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. Welcome, everyone. Today, we honor William Blackman, Velvel Beneficial Halevi, a tenacious man who lived fully and well into his 90s. 94 years old, with 68 years of marriage to his beloved Phyllis, whom he married just a few years ago in May 1956. He was a husband, a son, father, father-in-law, grandfather, brother, a proud veteran, a committed family man, and so much more. Now, I did not have the opportunity to know Bill in life, but I did get to spend some time speaking with his children, who shared with me some of who their father was, the values that drove him, the commitment he had to them and to their families, the dedication that he showed Phyllis, his fierce independence, his tenacity, and his reliability. You know, David, who worked with his father at RCA, reflected to me that though there are about 5,000 employees at RCA at the time, they all knew Bill and respected him and liked him. It seemed to me that this tracked with what I learned about him, that he was exceptionally friendly. Was told that the nurses and the doctors over the last year plus knew him and cared about him. The front desk people at the Weston Club loved him. Cashiers, too. I heard that he knew the people working at all of his favorite restaurants, but more than that, they knew him, even years later, being glad to see him if they hadn't seen him in a while. Richard fondly recalled his father taking him mineral hunting, making time to develop shared interests, and cultivating the passions that his children held dear. Sue reflected, this is remarkable, that she didn't realize that others didn't have what she had for a long time. A father so reliable, so dependable, and so caring. A father who would do anything for his family. More than all of that, all of his children made sure that I knew how deep of a bond he had with their mother, Phyllis. And Phyllis, your children-in-laws, and your grandchildren, they all love you and care for you as you navigate this loss. None of us, I don't think anyone here can fully grasp the pain of losing a spouse of 68 years. But while we can't know, we can be there for you, which is really the best they can do, and they're committed to doing it. And now's the time to rely on them and to let them pour out love on you. And we all especially hold you at this time as we honor your beloved Bill today. So today, we raise up the very best attributes of William Blackman, Velvel Beneficial Halevi, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. Our Jewish tradition teaches that while the physical body is temporary, the soul is eternal. It's without end. So today, we do gather for sacred purpose to pray for the full and complete rest for Bill's body. And as he'll be laid to rest in a bit at Locust Wood, we remember and recall that his soul, which is eternal, remains bound to the bond of life. That's to each of you. and we seek blessings, God willing, for the continued elevation of his soul. It's my prayer that our time together today have purpose and deep meaning, and that it honor well Bill's memory, who passed away just a few short days ago. My name is Rabbi Nathan Weiner. I'm the Director of Jewish Outreach and Engagement for the Jewish Federation of Southern New Jersey and our family of agencies. It is an honor and representation of myself, of my family, the Federation system, and if I can be brazen, the Jewish people, to be present with each of you here today. So, welcome. Welcome to those gathered here in person and to those gathered on the live stream. To those joining us remotely, know that your presence is felt deeply here in the chapel. We know you wish you were here, but we feel your presence in the room today as well. Bill is survived, of course, by his loving wife, Phyllis, and his children, Richard and his wife, Merle, David and his wife, Ruth, and Susan and her husband, CJ, and his grandchildren, Allison and her husband, Lawrence, Lara and her fiancé, Marshall, and Philip, and Marissa and her fiancé, Steve, and Joshua. Mazel tov on the upcoming weddings, and I pray I got all the names correct. I did okay? Okay, great. God willing, may your love and care for one another carry you through this difficult loss and transition. So there are two mitzvot that we're going to perform together today. The first is the end of the mitzvah of kavod hamet, that begins, which means honoring the deceased, that begins at the moment of passing and continues through to our time together today at the cemetery. Immediately following our symbolic interment there, we'll transition to our second mitzvah of nichum avelim, of comforting the mourners as they enter their new status of becoming mourners for the next number of months in memory of their husband and father. I'm now going to recite Psalm 23. It's customary to recite Tehillim, Psalms, at moments of loss and grief. And choose Psalm 23. It's well known across the Abrahamic faith traditions at moments of grief and loss. And I'll read it in Hebrew, followed by a standard translation in the English. If you're comfortable and wish to in either language, you're welcome to say it with me. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo achsar, binot deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek lama'an shemo, gam ki elech b'getzel mavet lo irara ki atay madi, shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zororai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen, amen. From Kohelet, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time for speaking. This is now a time for speaking, as some members of the family have prepared words to share in loving memory of Bill. And to open, I'm going to read some words from Ruth and from David. Then we're going to hear from Richard and then from Susan. So first from his daughter-in-law, Ruth, who wrote just a few words, really. The last 14 months gave us an unprecedented amount of time together. There were only a few days in all that time that I did not see or talk to Bill. I felt we started as a father-in-law and daughter-in-law, and then ended as father and daughter. I talked to Bill as I would my father, poor Marvin, and he talked to me like I was his own. We joked, laughed, talked about topics I never thought I would, yelled at each other when necessary. I think I won most of those arguments, and sat by his side countless times for as long as needed, securing those warm blankets that brought a smile to his face. Thank you for letting me have your back. And from David, 50 years have passed since our early days living in Downs Farm, having the only house in the neighborhood with, how do you say this word? Zoya? Zoysia grass. I told you could have done this, David. This zoysia grass that looked like a hayfield for 10 months of the year. I roamed the neighborhood after school and played hockey, football, and whatever else was available back in the days when parents let their kids do that. I don't remember doing much homework, but I still turned out okay. Every day at 5:30 p.m., give or take 30 seconds, it was dinner time, and my dad would go outside and whistle so loud that it was heard several blocks away. I always came running home. You and Mom lugged me to the year-round indoor swim meets and the Downs Farm Swim Club practices and competitions in the summers. After college, I had the unique experience of working with my dad at RCA in Camden as an engineer. When I first started out, he was the mechanical engineering manager and ultimately became a program manager responsible for the National Security Agency's secure communications contracts. I eventually supported his programs and made customer presentations at his meetings. My dad had a sharp mechanical aptitude, as other engineers constantly sought his advice. At the time, there were over 3,000 employees. I got it wrong. 3,000. There we go. Over 5,000 employees, and everyone seemed to have worked with him in some capacity, all with the same commitment same comment that he was such a nice guy. Retiring at age 58, he spent the next 36 years enjoying life. Thank you, Dad, for letting me become a Barrett-Jackson classic car auction addict. I am too. Reminiscing about my father's slew of classics will always bring fond memories. Lastly, living in close proximity to my dad made it easy for me to drop by and visit. Meet him at Panera's, your favorite for many years, or occasionally bump into him at TJ Maxx or Marshall's. I will always miss those times. Now going to invite Richard up to share some words. Make sure you adjust the mic so the people at home will get it.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? So I want to thank everyone for being here, honor my father. It's a comfort to see you all. And I especially want to thank those who were there for him over the past year with his care. I deeply appreciate it. Much of my life has been shaped by the example set by my father and the natural gifts I inherited from him. No doubt, this includes my affinity for sciences, my career as an engineer, my role as a father, and my obsession with neatness and punctuality. I should also add one of the greatest attributes I inherited from my father was my practice of vacuuming and cleaning while we still had guests in the house. But I did not inherit all my father's talents, one of which was his courage. When he was young, he enlisted in the Army. He served with the 51st Signal Corps Brigade in Korea. He was in active combat for 2 years. As for myself, when I was his age, I spent the summers at the Jersey Shore, having the time of my life with my cousin Howie, please raise your hand, and my best friend from college, Bob, who are both here. Thank you. Raise your hand. I blame them. Okay. The other talent I did not inherit was his whistle that my brother brought up. It is worth mentioning again, he would take his fingers like this and whistle, and it could be heard, it was so loud and shrill, it could be heard through the entire neighborhood. And I just want to correct my brother by saying not only did he, myself, and my sister run home for dinner, but everybody in the neighborhood ran home for dinner. And I always wondered why we all had dinner at the same time. But there you go. Okay. But my father's accomplishments in the military, his multiple degrees, his career, they're impressive and notable. But above all was his dedication to us. So I just want to thank him, my mother. It's the greatest gift anyone can receive, to have supporting and loving parents. And it's a gift that will live on through me, my children, and generations to come. Thank you very much.
Super nervous and anxious. Okay. First, I want to thank everyone for coming. And although I knew this day was coming, I'm still not prepared for it. I spoke with my dad every day and cannot imagine life without him. He always gave me the best advice and was present in my life. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to sum up all of his 94 years in just a few minutes. To tell you a little bit about my dad, he grew up in Brooklyn, New York, a son of immigrants. My father enlisted in the United States Army, where he served from 1951 to 1953 in the Korean War. He received multiple service awards, including the Bronze Star, and was promoted to first lieutenant. Following his military service, he earned a degree in mechanical engineering from NYU, and then he got 2 masters from Temple University, one in education and one in business administration. His career as an engineer spanned over 30 years at RCA in Camden, New Jersey, where he worked his way up to program manager for military projects for the United States government. He was awarded a United States patent in April of 1987. This was my dad on paper, but now I want to tell you a little bit about who he was as a person. Working at RCA afforded my dad the ability to be very present in our lives. Growing up, we had dinner together every night as a family, and he was always around on the weekends. He was always there providing love, support, and stability. My 2 brothers and my son followed in my dad's footsteps and became engineers. And being an engineer and a veteran would describe my dad perfectly. The engineer in him was that we never needed handyman. He could fix anything. He was great with technology, and he loved gadgets. He disabled the light switches in his home and put them on remote controls that to this day I still cannot figure out how to work. At 94, he was texting, emailing, and occasionally getting hacked, which then meant Marissa had to run down and fix it all. But that never stopped him. An iPhone upgrade or a new computer was often the topic of conversation. In his later years, we had him on our phone plan, and I can't tell you how many times I would get a call that he's in the Verizon store trying to upgrade his phone, and he needed my security codes. Usually I would tell him that his phone worked just fine, Dad, this is not necessary. And that didn't stop him. He'd go home and order a new one on eBay. Just weeks ago, as sick as he was, he fixed his printer and rewired a light socket in his living room lamp. It was pretty incredible. My dad was somewhat of a scheduled person, and to him being on time meant being 15 minutes early, a trait he passed on to me and my brothers. He was an early riser who loved being busy and useful. He would start every morning with a nice breakfast, the crossword puzzle, and reading the newspaper. My dad took an early retirement at the age of 58, which he really enjoyed. and I enjoyed it too as we got to spend a lot of time together. True to how he was always there to help me with my children and became a constant in their lives. During his retirement, he spent many years as a volunteer at Garden State Virtual Hospital. He also ran the travel committee in his neighborhood. He loved to golf, play poker, bridge, shop, go antiquing. He just loved life, and he loved a good meal. Fortunately for him, my mom is an excellent cook. At a young age, my dad taught me how to play chess, pool, and many card games. When COVID hit, CJ, Marissa, Steve, and I started playing Hearts remotely with my dad on our computers. Typically, he would beat us, so I asked him what his strategy was, and he told me that he counted the cards. So I began to do the same, and I became a much better competitor, which I think he enjoyed. We continued to play until his final days. My dad also had a great sense of humor. He was always making jokes with those around him. Even when he was sick, he would joke with the nurses and doctors. When we would go out for dinner, the waiter would ask if we needed anything else. Always the same line, "Yep, a winning lottery ticket." He never failed to get a smile from those around him, and he always knew how to brighten my day. My dad was my winning lottery ticket. He wasn't a person who would sit around. He made the most of every day. He had this amazing ability to not worry. He didn't waste energy on being concerned with other people's opinions, and he focused on the positive and embraced change. He never compared himself to others. He was a content person who always felt that he had enough, and I think this was the secret to his amazing life. Prior to him getting sick, when he was just shy of 93, he was still driving, living completely independent, and sharp as a tack. And even with this last year being so difficult, my dad never complained. Not once did he say it was tough for him, and it was a really tough year. To sum him up, he was friendly, he loved to socialize, and most of all, he loved his family. He was a loving husband, brother, father, grandfather, and a good friend. There's so much more I could go on about. I'm going to miss him terribly, but I will try to count my blessings and honor him every day. My dad outlived many friends and family members, and I hope he is at peace with them looking down on us.
It's with these beautiful thoughts and memories and dedications in mind that we move to the central prayer of a Jewish memorial service, El Malei Rachamim, which asks that Bill's soul be granted true rest in the wings of God's divine presence. I'm going to read it first in the English, followed by chanting it in the Hebrew. If it's comfortable physically for you to do so, I invite you to please rise. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the divine presence in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as a resplendence of the firmament to the soul of William Blackman, who has gone to his eternal home. For charity has been donated in remembrance of his soul. May his place of rest be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the All-Merciful One shelter him with the cover of God's wings forever, and bind his soul in the bond of life. Adonai is his heritage. May he rest in his resting place in peace, and let us say, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kazohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Velvel Ben Fishel Halevi, Shehalach Le'olamo, Ba'avor Shenadvu Tzadaka Ba'ad Hazkarat Nishmato, Began Eden Dehe Menuchato, Lachen Bal Harachamim Yastirehu Beseter Kenafav Le'olamim, Vitzor Bitzor HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach al mishkavo b'shalom, v'nomar, Amen. Please be seated once again. Our time here at the chapel is drawing to a close. In a few moments, we're going to make our way in processional to Locust Wood for entombment. The family asks that guests who wish, following time at the cemetery, are welcome to join together at Ponzio's for a meal and visits of consolation. Donations are welcome to be made to the Veterans Administration or the Colon Cancer Foundation. And a quick note that you see the American flag and have heard about his honorable and decorated service. There will also be military honors provided for him at the cemetery.